The crystal champagne flute slipped from my grip as my father's words cut through the ambient noise of the five-star restaurant. The glass shattered against the hardwood floor, silencing 20 pairs of eyes that swiveled toward me in unison. "Tonight," my father continued, raising his own glass with that practiced smile that never reached his cold eyes, "we celebrate our real daughter, the successful one." My skin burned as if I'd been slapped. The overhead chandelier suddenly cast everyone in harsh, unforgiving light. It revealed my sister Rebecca's smug satisfaction, my mother's averted gaze, and the collective discomfort of extended family who didn't know where to look. The $78 filet mignon on my plate might as well have been cardboard, as my father's words hung in the air like poison. My name is Olivia. I'm 32 and an entrepreneur. This is the story of how I transformed from family afterthought to the architect of their reckoning. I sat at the far end of the mahogany table, my husband Thomas squeezing my knee beneath the crisp white tablecloth. His steady presence was the only thing keeping me from walking out. His tailored navy suit didn't scream wealth like my father's Italian designer ensemble, but his quiet confidence carried an authority that no one in this room had recognized yet. "Dad," Rebecca said with a practiced laugh, pearl earrings catching the light as she tilted her head. "You don't have to say that." My father smirked, swirling his $400 Cabernet. "Oh, I do. The world needs to know the difference between ambition," and his eyes slid toward me like daggers, "wasted potential." Every gaze followed his, and heat rushed to my face, not from embarrassment, but from the fury building inside me with nowhere to go. I'd been labeled the disappointment since my small design company failed 3 years ago after losing our major client. The daughter who married below her worth, as my father had whispered loudly enough for Thomas to hear at our wedding. Rebecca leaned forward, diamond bracelet glinting under the light. "You're still doing that? What is it again? Freelancing?" A few stifled laughs rippled around the table. My cousin averted his eyes, suddenly fascinated by the pattern on his plate. "Something like that," I replied, keeping my voice steady despite the trembling in my fingers. "Well," she nodded, smug satisfaction radiating from her perfect posture. "We can't all be vice presidents at Westfield Partners, right?" My father chuckled, tapping her glass with his own. "Exactly. You've made this family proud, Rebecca. You've earned your place." My mother looked at me for a moment, then quickly looked away. That glance, pity mixed with embarrassment, pierced deeper than any words could. Thomas leaned in, his voice low, calm, dangerous. "You sure you want to sit through this?" I met his eyes and gave him a faint smile. "Oh, I want to see how far they'll go." The waiter arrived with more champagne, and Dad lifted his glass again. "To Rebecca," he declared, "and to the company that made her who she is." Everyone cheered except Thomas, except me. The sound of laughter swirled around us like static, dull and meaningless. I felt the bitterness rising in my chest, memories flashing years of being compared, dismissed, replaced. I'd been the daughter who painted her dreams, who failed once and was never forgiven for it. Rebecca had always been the golden child, perfect hair, perfect job, perfect parents' pride. But perfection has a shelf life. Thomas's hand tightened around mine under the table. His lips brushed my ear, barely a whisper. Time to tell them we bought their company. For a second, I froze. The room blurred. Forks clinked against china. My father laughed at something Rebecca said about corporate success. Then I turned to Thomas, meeting his eyes, and found my center again. I cleared my throat softly. "Dad." He looked at me mid-sip. "Funny thing about Westfield Partners," I said, my voice steady, almost sweet. "It changed ownership last week." The laughter died instantly. He frowned, lowering his glass. "What are you talking about?" Thomas leaned forward, resting his forearms on the table. "She's saying we bought it. Every share, every asset." The air turned heavy, as if someone had suddenly increased its density. Rebecca blinked, confusion flickering into disbelief across her perfectly made-up face. "You're lying." Thomas smiled slightly. "You'll find out Monday morning at your board meeting. We'll be there." He tapped his watch. "Your assistant already confirmed it in your calendar after receiving our official notice." My father's glass hit the table with a sharp thud. Red wine sloshing dangerously close to the rim. "You what?" I sat back, feeling my pulse slow to a strange, powerful calm. "You said you were proud of your real daughter." "You should be careful who you call real, Dad. Turns out the one you overlooked just signed your paychecks." The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was poetic. Thomas reached for his champagne, his tone casual, to family. No one lifted their glass, but for the first time in my life, I didn't need them to. The next morning, after a restless night of processing what had happened, I stood by our kitchen window, watching steam rise from my coffee. After leaving the restaurant around 9 p.m. last night, we'd driven straight home in tense silence, both knowing the real storm was yet to come. My phone buzzed nonstop. 17 missed calls from my father, 24 unread texts from Rebecca. Thomas glanced over his coffee mug, expression unreadable. "They'll come," he said quietly. "People like that always do. Pride doesn't let them stay quiet." Right on cue, the front gate camera chimed. My father's black SUV rolled up the driveway of our suburban home, followed by Rebecca's sleek white coupe. I wasn't surprised they found our address. My mother had visited once 2 Christmases ago when she briefly attempted reconciliation. I could already imagine the storm about to walk through our door. Thomas didn't flinch. He simply adjusted his tie with methodical precision, as if this was just another business meeting. The doorbell rang once, hard. I took a deep breath before opening it. My father stood there red-faced, clutching a stack of papers. "You think this is funny?" he barked. "You walk into my family dinner, humiliate me in front of everyone, and now you're spreading lies." "Lies?" I asked, stepping aside. "Come in. Let's discuss it calmly." Rebecca brushed past me, her perfume sharp and expensive, like it was designed to take up more space than she did. "Dad, don't waste your time. There's no way they bought Westfield Partners. The board would have told me." Thomas leaned against the counter, unbothered. "Actually, they did. Check your email." She scoffed, but pulled out her phone anyway. The moment her eyes scanned the screen, the color drained from her face. The subject line read, "Ownership Transfer Notice, Westfield Partners." This can't be real," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's very real," Thomas said smoothly. "The previous chairman was retiring. We offered a buyout he couldn't refuse." He paused, his gaze steady. "You'd be surprised how many doors open when you treat people decently." My father turned to me, voice shaking with fury. "You planned this behind my back." I met his gaze directly, unflinching. "You made sure I had nothing left to lose, remember? You laughed when my small design startup failed. You said I'd never understand business." I let those memories settle between us. So, I learned, quietly, efficiently. He slammed the folder on the counter, papers spilling out. "You think this makes you better than us?" "No," I said, my tone steady. "It makes me free." Rebecca rounded on me, tears brimming in her eyes. You couldn't stand that I finally made them proud, so you had to ruin everything. Ruin? I cut her off, feeling something break loose inside me. You spent years treating me like your personal punchline. You and Dad built a wall between us the moment success came knocking for you. You didn't want family. You wanted an audience. Thomas stepped forward then, his voice calm but cutting. For what it's worth, Rebecca, we didn't buy the company to ruin you. We bought it to rebuild what your father almost destroyed with arrogance and favoritism. My father's jaw tightened. You don't talk to me like that. Thomas didn't raise his voice. You've spent your life confusing fear with respect. That ends now. The room went still, the ticking of the wall clock suddenly audible. I looked at my father, the man who once told me that dreams don't pay bills, that love was weakness, that my worth was tied to how useful I was to him. For the first time, I didn't see power. I saw panic. Dad, I said quietly, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to show you what happens when you underestimate someone who refuses to stay small. He stared at me for a long time, eyes flicking between the contract papers and my face. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. Rebecca followed, but not before whispering, You'll regret this. When the door slammed shut, the silence felt heavier than before. But this time, it wasn't suffocating. It was clean. Thomas slipped an arm around my waist. You handled that perfectly. I exhaled slowly, watching their cars disappear down the street. It's strange, I said, voice trembling just slightly. How peace doesn't always feel peaceful at first. He smiled. Give it time. Tomorrow's the board meeting. That's when the real storm begins. The next morning, Monday, at 8 a.m., as we drove to the Westfield Partners headquarters downtown in Thomas's Audi, I mentally reviewed the facts our investigators had uncovered about the company's declining profits over the past 3 quarters. Thomas and I had spent the past year quietly building our investment portfolio, using the profits from his successful tech consultancy, which he'd built after leaving Silicon Valley 5 years ago, and my reborn design firm that had pivoted to high-end corporate branding after my initial failure. We'd approached the retiring chairman discreetly after hearing industry rumors of his departure through Thomas's former college roommate, who worked in the company's legal department, offering precisely what he wanted, a clean exit and respect for his legacy. The boardroom buzzed with quiet tension. Glass walls overlooked the city skyline, the morning sun slicing through steel and shadow. The company logo, Westfield Partners, gleamed on the far wall, but today, it no longer belonged to my father or sister. Thomas and I walked in together hand in hand. The board members, all in crisp suits and power dresses, turned toward us with cautious curiosity. Some smiled politely, others avoided eye contact. They'd already received the official notice. Ownership had changed hands. At the end of the long mahogany table sat my father and Rebecca. He looked furious. She looked desperate. Both were clinging to the illusion of control. Thomas broke the silence first. Good morning, everyone. As of last Friday, my wife and I are the majority shareholders of Westfield Partners. We appreciate your time. Rebecca slammed her pen down. You can't just walk in here and act like you own the place. Thomas raised an eyebrow. We don't act like we own it, Rebecca. We actually do. Laughter rippled quietly through the room. A few executives shifted uncomfortably, hiding smiles behind coffee cups and tablets. My father's glare could have burned through stone. He rose to his feet, voice booming. You don't understand what you've done. This company isn't a game. It's taken me 30 years to build. I looked at him evenly. 30 years of hiring your favorites, promoting your daughter, and running others into the ground. You built an empire on humiliation, Dad. I'm just here to clean up the mess. He took a step forward, his tone low and venomous. You think you can run a corporation? You couldn't even run your own life. Thomas stood beside me, his tone steady as a blade. She rebuilt her life from nothing. That's more than you've ever done. Rebecca turned toward the board, voice trembling. You all know me. You know I've kept this company profitable. Are you really going to let some outsider come in and take over everything? The CFO cleared his throat. Actually, Rebecca, with all due respect, the company's profits have dropped for 3 consecutive quarters. Her face went pale. What? I leaned forward slightly, resting my hands on the table. I know, because I've been watching from the outside for a long time. You spent money on luxury offices, bonuses for your friends, and left your employees underpaid. That ends today. My father clenched his fists. So what now? You'll fire us? I hesitated, then said calmly, No, I'm not you. The room went quiet again. Even Thomas looked at me, surprised but proud. I don't need to humiliate you, I continued. You'll stay on as consultants for 6 months. Enough time to teach the next generation how not to destroy a company from the inside out. Rebecca's voice broke. You're doing this to hurt me. No, I said softly. I'm doing this so you finally understand what it feels like to be on the other side of someone's arrogance. My father sank slowly back into his chair, silent now. The weight of what he'd lost seemed to crash down all at once. Thomas addressed the board again, calm and composed. Effective immediately, there will be a restructuring plan, new priorities, fair pay, employee safety, and ethical management. My wife will lead the transition. Applause filled the room, hesitant at first, then stronger, like everyone had been waiting years for this moment. As I looked around, something inside me settled. Not triumph, but peace. For years, I dreamed of proving them wrong. But now that I'd done it, I realized I didn't need their approval. I just needed to finally stop chasing it. When the meeting ended, I walked past my father without a word. He didn't look up. Rebecca sat frozen, staring at her phone, scrolling through messages from coworkers who'd already shifted their loyalty. Thomas opened the door for me. You okay? He asked. I smiled faintly. Better than I've ever been. We stepped into the sunlight. For once, it didn't feel harsh. It felt earned. As we settled into our new offices over the next 2 weeks, we moved temporarily into the company's executive penthouse on the top floor of the Westfield building. While renovating our home, which we decided to expand with our newfound resources, the headlines were everywhere. New leadership at Westfield Partners promises reform. Female owner brings humanity back to business, reporters called nonstop. Investors returned. Employees smiled again in the hallways. But success doesn't silence jealousy. It amplifies it. That night, as the city lights blinked beyond our penthouse window, I received a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it until I heard the voice. Congratulations, sis, Rebecca said, the words dripping with bitterness. You really think they love you? The board, the staff, the media? She paused. You'll fall just like before, and when you do, I'll be there to remind everyone who the real heir is. I sighed softly. You're exhausting yourself, Rebecca. Try enjoying peace for once. You took my life, she hissed. My position, my respect. No, I interrupted, calm but firm. You lost them. All I did was stop pretending you deserve them." She hung up. Thomas looked up from his laptop. "Trouble?" "Just old ghosts trying to stay relevant," I murmured, placing my phone face down. But I should have known Rebecca wasn't done. The next morning, my assistant burst into my office pale-faced. "Ma'am, you need to see this." She handed me a tablet. A video played. A false news clip accusing me of fraud, claiming the buyout was illegal. It was a lie. Carefully edited and spread across every major social platform, Rebecca had used her media contacts from her VP days to ensure maximum exposure overnight. Thomas entered moments later, jaw tight. She did it. I felt my pulse steady, not from panic, but from resolve. Then we'll handle it the right way. I called my driver immediately and headed to our company's press room. By noon, I called an emergency press conference. Cameras flashed as I walked in, head high, voice calm. "False narratives spread fast when truth threatens fragile egos," I began. "But facts move louder than rumors." I displayed proof of every transaction, every legal clearance, every signed agreement. The audience watched as the truth unfolded live. Documents, timestamps, and even a clip of the former chairman himself saying, "It was her integrity that convinced me to sell." Reporters murmured. Cameras clicked like thunder. And then, right in the back of the crowd, I saw her. Rebecca in sunglasses with a trembling jaw. I didn't flinch. "Family can be complicated," I said, letting the words hang in the air. "But family also teaches us the cost of pride. This company isn't about revenge. It's about rebuilding something honest." The room erupted in applause. Rebecca turned and slipped out before the cameras caught her face. Afterward, when I stepped outside, the air felt lighter. Thomas met me on the steps, his smile quiet but full. "You didn't just win," he said. "You transformed." I looked up at the skyline, the same city that once chewed me up and laughed at my failure. "Funny," I whispered. "I used to think success meant beating them. Now I realize it means never becoming them." That evening, as we sat on the balcony, Thomas handed me a small velvet box. Inside wasn't jewelry. It was a key. "A new building," he said, "for your own company. One that carries your name. You've earned that." My chest tightened, not from pride, but from something softer. "And what about Westfield Partners?" He smiled. "You saved it. Now let it stand on its own. You don't need their shadow anymore." For a long moment, I looked out over the city, 1,000 windows glowing against the night. Each one reminded me of a lesson learned the hard way, that silence can be power, kindness can be sharper than revenge, and walking away can be the loudest victory of all. I turned to Thomas, my voice steady, full of quiet strength. "Let's build something better, something that never forgets where it came from." He nodded. Together. The city lights flickered below as the wind shifted. Gentle, clean, final. A month later, I received a letter from my mother. She'd left my father, finally finding her own courage after watching me find mine. She was living in a small apartment downtown, already looking lighter in the photo she enclosed. As for Rebecca, she eventually accepted a position at a smaller firm across town, humbled, but perhaps finally learning to build her own identity. My father reached out once by email, a term message acknowledging our legal victory, before retreating to his lake house, where he now lives alone with his regrets. We haven't spoken since, and I've made peace with that final silence between us. Westfield Partners continues to thrive under professional management we installed, with Thomas serving as chairman of the board while we focus on our new venture, a design and technology incubator that helps overlooked entrepreneurs build sustainable businesses. We named it Phoenix Ventures because some stories don't end with ashes. They begin there. Some wounds heal. Others just teach us to live differently. Before you go, here's a quick bonus for sticking around. If you love learning and growing like I do, you need to try audiobooks. I've got an exclusive deal with Audible.